So we just talked about the removal of liquidity. Hex, we had a whole bunch of those huge, what appeared to be the OA stakes come due the other day, and now they were all restaked for various portions of time. I think a lot of them were only staked for 30 days previously, but they were restaked very large amounts once again, tons and tons of T-shares ranging from 2 to 10 years. It once again cuts the T-share supply massively, which in theory should help Hex and Hex staking. We've talked about this before whenever this was first done and we started to see all this movement. I mean, and this is the thing, like we just talked about the liquidity getting pulled. As much, this goddamn camera, as much as all these things are happening right now, that we're seeing prices go down and it's violent movements, it is because of the liquidity. And it's now that we're seeing with the Hex staking, we're seeing the same thing with the T-shares as well. So I want to ask you this angle, because I didn't anyway see this narrative talked about very much the last time there were all these big OA stakes, but this time around, I'm seeing a lot of people talk about, with the conversations we've had around centralized exchange listings with this ecosystem, that if the OA doesn't hold all this supply anymore, which allegedly is like one of the things with Hex anyway, that exchanges are nervous about or whatever it is, even though they list asinine other tokens sometimes. Right. Now with all these huge stakes and staked out in a smart contract that is immutable, that you can't do anything to for years upon years, other than like nuking the stake if you wanted to for some strange reason, which would just reward all of us.
Right.
Are there, a higher likelihood of an exchange listing of Hex because of the tokens not exchanging hands, I guess, but at least not being held by that wallet for now because they're in that smart contract? I don't know. I've seen people talking about that, but I'm wondering what you make of not just the, again, T-share supply shock, but also that idea with the centralized exchanges.
Well, I think it's always been, a good argument. Well, somebody could dump all those tokens on your head, so you've got that. Now that that's out of the window, I just wonder what the next argument will be. Yeah, but right. There's always going to be something. There's always going to be the RH haters out there that have to come up with something to give that no, we don't want to list it because of whatever reason it may be. But yeah, it also, something else it does is it really considerably lowers the market cap. When you have all these tokens that are burnt and you're rewarded with T-shares instead, they don't count toward the market cap anymore. So, the odds of it getting back to a top 10 like it was last cycle, it was a top 3. It was right behind Bitcoin,
on Nomics only, I
Ethereum.
think.
But the Nomics was the only one that was keeping track of it correctly.
I know.
And occasionally there was Yahoo Finance, because they were getting their data from CoinMarketCap unedited, right?
Yeah.
So it did show correctly on Yahoo Finance as well. So yes, there was a point where it got to number 3. It passed Binance, it passed USDC, and boom, it was in third spot, only for a very brief time, but it was there. So for it to get back to that position or whatever, without the amount of OA tokens, you're talking billions now that are gone out of circulation, and that's what would calculate it. It'd be a much tougher time. Maybe they will also start to rank it properly. That's another thing that can happen easily as well, because again, that argument is out the window. Who knows what the next one will be, but it is favorable. As far as that goes, is they can't say, well, a founder has a whole bunch. Well, I mean, we know it's the case with 95% of cryptos out there. There is a founder holding, they just call it something different. So
yes. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. Usually with exchanges or other detractors that are just not buying into the ecosystem, there is always going to be some reason why, it'll be a long con 20 years down the road, obviously, to them. So it is bullish, though. I mean, it's cool to see the stakes get restaked out like that and everything that we've seen with the supply. So all good stuff for sure. And yeah, we'll see it continue. Unless you have anything else on that, I was thinking we got a few kind of light things we could go over to. Oh, curious of your comments here. So DeFi Gardner, this is an interesting guy. So he used to comment on our channel quite frequently. I checked his channel out. He used to do some videos about like Solana memes and stuff like that. I know they're not looking fantastic right now, but hey, neither is anything. So,
Yeah.
but he says PulseX is the only coin, and he's been in here kind of arguing with people about PDI, and he's not a fan of PDI, but he says PulseX is the only coin worth a damn. Buy a bag and don't even look at it until ETH is 5K. Just step away from crypto. I disagree with the first part of your statement, but I think the rest of the advice isn't too shabby, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
like
mean,
the second half of it as well.
and honestly, that's probably been the token I've been wanting to acquire the most over the last year and a half, though. So I am with you. Your sentiment. This is a Frank Molina tweet right here.
Yep.
Minus the only one worth a damn. Although that's pretty much the only one he buys. So I'm with you, man. Yeah, I mean, and I'm glad you realized that, DeFi Gardner. Like some people, I think within, not that you're not within the community, but I know you've dabbled in other stuff too. But a lot of people that just have silo vision and PulseChain and stuff, just they think that nothing else in crypto, or that everything else in crypto is like just mooning. Everything else is just out there,
Yeah.
at all new all-time highs while we're down here. And I get it. Like this is a much bumpier ride. Like this is a very tough ride because we don't have the VCs. We don't have like other people backing us and stuff. There's just crazy, you don't have the favors of the influencers. You're not on coin ranking sites. Like there's all these different things. And that is part of what comes with like kind of a bootstrapped organic ecosystem, is that the downtimes can look really tough because there's no safety net. But that also means that the uptimes are infinitely better than what's going to happen in these other ones. Because while we do have whales that are selling left and right down here, thankfully, you don't have wallets that you're totally unaware of that are people that bought, like Pulse is pretty much at all-time lows right now. If you buy Pulse right now, you bought the lowest Pulse price in history. Okay. It's not as if there's all these shadowy figures, shadowy super coders. What was that? Remember that a couple years ago? Is that Pocahontas thing? I don't know. One of those people. But maybe it was Hillary Clinton. I don't know. But you don't have all those people that like, there's nobody that bought Pulse at 4 zeros and a 1 or something like that. It's not out there. Like you can buy the low right now. It'll probably go lower again. Sure. But as far as other people that are out there, there's nobody that bought it at cheaper prices. So I don't know if you have anything. I think some of his advice is pretty good here.
Yeah. I mean, I love the advice to just DCA and don't even look until ETH is 5K. Like, I mean, I think that with just about any token that you are in favor, NJ Dub said Hex is cool too. So I feel that way about it. PulseX, like it a lot. Pulse, I like it too. And they're all very, very heavily bonded. So, when one or two of them run, they're all going to run. There's some other cool projects out there, but yeah, I completely agree with his sentiment about don't look back until ETH is up there. And who knows, there is what they call a third cycle curse, and this is it for ETH, unfortunately.
I think that's just Sami is they. I think he's the one that coin. I don't know. I've other people said it before.
I've heard of it before.
Okay.
I've heard of it before. There was Dash was another one I think that made it to its third cycle and really had a hard time. So, ETH isn't the only one that's made it that long. There are some other older coins that are still out there that had a rough third cycle. So,
yeah,
it is a real thing.
Well, and even if it's not a third cycle curse, it's diminishing gains over time. I mean, that's a fact of life, Red Bull here, yeah. Any core coins are worth a buy. EHEX, for instance, if it doesn't, I think, do a 2x, it's a fail. Cheap to buy. We're in a great position. People don't realize. I mean, yeah, I agree with you. And the other thing with EHEX is, that ratio to Hex, obviously. We had the Richard Hart death tweet, back whenever that was. And I think this tweet today about PDI is very similar. That was something I didn't bring up earlier. But we had that, and we see the Hex recover, and I think it'll continue to recover against Hex.
I think 2x is being extremely generous. I think if it doesn't do a 50x, something's wrong, which I think that's quite a possibility. at point, what is it, 0.00021 or
002
something?
right now.
Two?
Yeah.
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 So even I think it could get to 10 cents if things start popping off that way. What is that? That's about a 50x, I believe. So
I mean, I would take at this point, I think we're all pretty goddamn beaten and battered. I would
well,
take half that, honestly, but yeah.
well, I think it can easily get to 10 cents if PHEX is going to do what I believe it will.
Okay. We shall see. But yeah, I while it hasn't been like a major purchase of mine, I've definitely still DCA'd here and there into EHEX. So I think it's worth it. Yeah, let's see here. We can finish off with yeah, DeFi Gardener, exactly. And this is the most attractive thing about PulseX. We know PulseX is deflating, though. That's what makes it superior. I mean, yeah, and Richard
Yeah.
has tweeted about that over Christmas. He tweeted about it a whole bunch. I think if you're going to read the tea leaves of Richard Hart, his PulseX tweets are probably the tea leaves to read the most, whatever the hell reading tea leaves even means.